there, and then, bam. I'm here trying to winterize and get my shit off the property. I'm trying to build something away off the property, and it's getting fucking cold. So while I'm here, there's service here. There's not great service where I'm going. So that's why I'm doing this. I've already told the police that I don't stay here. Don't want to stay here. I'd like to leave and come back in months. But everybody's got whatever. If he's trying to sell the property, then power to him. New owners can't do anything with the property anyway. What are they gonna do? They're spending 60 grand to buy a property they can sit on. Whatever. So, first time I did drugs was when I was 13. I smoked weed at my friend's house, and everyone else had smoked weed for the first time. And there was one, two, three, four, five, six, seven of us in the room, and the mom is a major hippie. Uh, in Vermont, it's rare to have mixed race children, but you know Marla, so she had a black son with an afro that was a rapper, and he was really cool. His name was Max Braun. He was dope, and he was funny. The whole family's really funny and unique and special. Um, he was cool, and then she had like three other daughters, and I had a crush on Taylor back in the day. So I would go over, and that was my first time hanging out with a big group of people, really in my life. Um, so we were all there. Lilia, Taylor, Roxy, Sam, me, maybe Ryan was there, and then Max and the sisters and the mom. And we all smoked weed, and I remember all of us, like, it was like four of us digging into this bread, and we were ripping the bread out and just like smearing it in the Nutella. But then, I don't know, I sprung into action. Everybody else was laughing, having fun, freaking out, but I was like, I want to do something. So I got up and I crawled out of her window. It was in the middle of winter. I crawled out of her window onto the roof, onto the second story roof. And I was like, I can make that. So I jumped off the roof and landed on both my feet and then just walked back up into the house. And Taylor was like, Did you jump off my roof? And I broke her window, but it wasn't a hard fix. Like, worst case scenario, I just pulled a screw off of the top. And all they had to do was screw it back in, but she made a big deal out of it. And that's really all I remember. Then I went home. After that, I drank a few times where the older kids would give me screwdrivers. And I remember they would drink, and there's nobody out. The town was like, I think there was 700 people that lived in our village. Like 7 miles up. You have to go up about 20 miles up into the mountains, and then there's a small town there that's the ski town because there's two ski resorts. From that ski town that's got like 13,000 people, then you go 10 more miles into the mountains, and then you're at a small town of like 900 people, and then you go 4 miles further into the mountains on the other side of this big lake, Lake Whitingham. There's Whitingham, which is just a post office, a church that no one goes to, and just a bunch of fields. There used to be like a manufacturing facility that was closed. So it was just farms, lakes, and nobody. So they would get drunk, and there was all these really steep hills around through the mountains, and they would take off going really fast. And I was like, I guess I'm gonna die, because they would see how much air they could get in their Subaru. These like 19-year-old kids, and all of us 13-year-olds are in the car. And that's really all I remember for that. Then we did acid. They gave me acid when I was 14, Or no, I was still 13. No, maybe I was 14 and I was about to turn 15. We did acid, and that morning they gave me half a tab to start. My friend Sam, they gave him a tab because he was 6 feet and I was like 5'5". Now I'm like 5'10", 6 foot with my boots on, but they gave me half a tab, and I remember that when I took it, it felt like something like my brain now had something that was growing, and that something that was growing was dark, but that something that was growing gave me a new perspective and awareness on everything that allowed me to dissolve myself and look at things clearly for how they were. I had already been able to, I have this spiritual gift where no matter what anyone says to me or does to me, I can see it for exactly what it is. So if somebody comes up to me before they're even near me, I know their entire emotional state. I know the song that they're playing. I know the energy they're coming with. I can usually tell just by a comment on the internet. Unless I'm under heavy spiritual warfare and I feel like all these relationships, the air element has gotten heightened in the world in that season, like Libra. So if there's a lot of air that's now sort of gumming up everything, making it hazy because of all the flowing energies, as an 11, being born in the 11th in numerology, and I would say my Aquarius, Mars, Moon, Neptune, and Uranus in the 10th house, probably, you know, that's a Aquarius, all of those in Capricorn. So I'm a strong, detached sociopath that processes emotions logically, and it takes a like immense suffering for me to even have a simple human emotion because it's got the air. Emotions are water and earth and fire. When you have all those heavy air stuff, it's not there's not really room to. But I can magnify everything, not magnify it, like amplify everything, and I can see things for how they are. The problem is like when you get other air signs or when you're in air signs, and there's this war of energies that can get difficult. That can get really difficult, but and I obviously struggle with boundaries, and that could be just isolated upbringing. I never developed a need for it. I never developed a need to ward off other people's egos because I grew up in the woods completely alone. I didn't realize until very recently, like if I go back through my messages and my conversations with people in the past and how I was acting and the things that I say, I didn't realize that I had no personality. I had not learned to develop a sense of self, and I was just regurgitating the influence of my parents, almost like their demonic attachments they try to force into me violently had an effect on me, and I was just like one time I messaged a girl that I thought was cute when Facebook had just come out in like 2012, and the whole conversation with her, I thought that what I was being inspired to say was my own thoughts, but then I realized no, I was accidentally, as a tree, taking the nutrients from my father, and it was literally just my father. The entire thing, the entire conversation was my father speaking to her, even to the point where I pretended I was drunk and pathetic. Like I just didn't really know what to say, so I was like I just trusted my brain to come up with the right thing to say because that's how I lived my life, is that I would be walking around and then my brain would tell me to say something, so I'd say something. So a lot of that, like not knowing boundaries and influence and relationships and how that affects me. When I did acid, I became aware of it really for the first time. I was able to separate and dissolve and look at things clearly without influence, but also I became so aware of everything. I wasn't anxious, I wasn't freaking out, I wasn't worried about things. I was just happy to be there, and I was functioning normally, but my senses had gotten the ability, the things that were trapping me, I was able to grow into, and then it all dissolved. But my tongue was numb, my face was numb. I wasn't really like, I could do all that, and I could feel all the emotions in the room, they had me go to. We were supposed to volunteer at the public library for this small town, and it was filled with all the old veterans from World War II and Vietnam. And it was the morning. Sam had who was 6 foot tall. Aries had the coffee, and I, the Sagittarius Aquarius, who was much shorter and less functioning, had the decaf. But every time I saw that they raised their hand for coffee, my brain immediately, I think that I was seeing the thought form above Sam to administer the coffee to the guy. And because I was seeing administer the coffee to the guy, my body went okay. Like I was thinking that. So even though I didn't see the guy asking for the coffee, I saw in spirit Sam's register and the guy communicate to Sam in the electromagnetic spectrum that they weren't able to perceive that coffee needed to go to the guy. So I was like, okay, and then I started pouring the coffee, and then I walked away, and then later I was like, oh fuck, I just poured decaf coffee and a bunch of veterans at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they were not. I remember looking at them in the eyes on acid, and they're looking at me, and I'm like this, and I saw the disappointment and the sadness sweep over their face, and I was like, okay. Eventually, I got on the piano and I played something, and they all clapped for me, and I don't know what I played, but that was that. That's all I really remember. Then I did Xanax in school, and I remember that I could function. I was supposed to be taking notes on what the teacher was saying, but my work, like, I was thinking at 3 different places at once. So I had the part of my brain that's taking in the information and writing it down. Then I had the part of my brain that was speaking to people and trying to come up with social stuff. And then I had the part of my consciousness or whatever that was worried about, and that's what felt like was talking to God. Like I had the light on me. There was this big bright light in my consciousness always as a child. This big bright light where I was communicating to something like an angel or God or something back when it was still here with me. I still get it sometimes. I remember that I was shuffling like a kaleidoscope, I guess, or like those picture frames that you shift the picture, that red picture things that kids have, where I kept accidentally sliding to the wrong thing. So I'm in my notes, I have what the teacher is saying, and then all of a sudden it goes off, and what I was trying to tell my friend Sam, I wrote down, and then I started writing the same words over and over again, and then I'm like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be thinking this, blah blah blah, and then I'm like, I was trying to write that, and then at one point I just looked up and goes, I hope nobody knows I'm on Xanax. And then I looked at the para, and we made eye contact, and she was staring at me from across the room, and I wasn't trying to speak, but I said, does she know I'm on drugs? And then I think somebody went, we all know you're on drugs. They said, we all know you're all on drugs, which was pretty funny. Um, I remember that. Then next time I did acid, we were going to the Big E in Massachusetts, and that's like 4 or 5 hours from us up in the mountains, because we have to get down the mountain, and then we have to get into Massachusetts, and we have to get an hour south into Springfield, and then we have to just switch over to the French King Bridge, and then we have to drive east a long ways to get to the Big E. So I was on acid the entire time. So was Sam and Alex. I think at that point they gave me a tab and a half, and then they gave us a big dose, and then the driver, Jacob, was a Christian, and he was like a devout Christian. He was very autistic, and he was homeschooled his whole life. So he could not know that we were on acid. So Alex told us we can't reveal, we can't say it, we have to be normal. So we're driving in the car, and I'm kind of losing touch with my body, and I'm thinking at a higher level. I'm out of my body, and I'm thinking about stuff and just listening to the music. And I remember that now that I had this larger sense of myself and control over energies in a different realm, I was just practicing focusing with that and moving my intentions around in a new way. And then I look over at Sam. I don't know, we were in there for hours, but it felt like it went by in 20 minutes. I look over at Sam, and he's fucking with me. He's got a water bottle that he's eating like this. And I knew what he was doing, and I knew that. But the crinkling of the water bottle, yum, yum. I broke down crying. I was bawling, like. And then Jacob's like, "Are you okay, man?" And Alex is like, "Yeah, he's had a really hard time." And then Sam keeps like flicking at my knee. And I'm like, shit. And then at some point we get back to normal, and I'm floating like this, and then I gained awareness suddenly of that if you close your eyes around your head, if you think of expanding your awareness, you'll start to feel pressures. You'll start to become aware of things that don't seem like thought forms, like stuff that's attached to you, like, and you'll feel like this like almost neon white shaped buzzing around everything now. Before that was introduced in 2020, this sort of psionic AI spiritual trap that we're all in. Before that wasn't there, and especially when we're out in the mountains, that wasn't there. So I just had like a gigantic open space in my consciousness, and I was able to feel way far away, very small in the back of my mind. There was this little buzzing of light and this little like frequency shifting. So I astral projected and turned my mind around and looked at it, and I saw that it was like a light crystal ball thing, and there were little grays. Before I knew about aliens, there were little grays there, and they're like, "He can see us? Fuck." And then they were like, "The lizard people are about to fuck your shit up." Basically, that's what the lizard people, like, warning me the lizard people were about to do something. And I had never heard lizard people in my life. And then we're going like 60, 70 down the freeway. We're approaching a tunnel. It's in Massachusetts. They have freeways where it's two-way, where you can go that fast and it's two-way. Coming the other way, a group of kids go, "Ah!" And they punch the top of as soon as the aliens were like, blah, blah, blah. And I punch I look, and they punch right above my head. They punch right above my door in the back seat. And we keep going, and my mind knows that they yelled, and they know that they're talking about those kids yelling, but also something is convincing me and steering me away from the realization that the lizard people correlated to that interaction, that something was trying to take me away from the realization that things happening in my consciousness were preceding real life events. So that sort of like they were avoiding me from the realization about how much conscious control we actually have in co-creating our simulation, and that there were other entities. Something was really trying to get me away from the realization that there are other entities, and they're always around us, and they're manipulating us remotely at all times. And that there's a force like the lizard people that will go through great lengths to do stuff like hurt you or punch the top of your car and stuff like that with people that are more susceptible to their control. Something was really trying to get me away, like steer me really far away from that and distract me into a lower realm of thinking. So my brain was constantly something in I guess you could call it your lizard brain, you're at the back of your head. Something here was stimulating my lizard brain and was trying to convince me that the back tire exploded. So I'm trying to communicate to, I'm like, I don't know how do I tell them that the tire exploded and we're gonna crash. And I sit there for like 15 minutes trying to make sure. I'm like, why don't they understand that the tire popped? Why don't they understand that the tire popped? And then even though they're talking about the kids, and my conscious mind is able to recognize and just see clearly without any thought that that's what happened. But I'm still, this was the first time in my life I've been separated, and I had two conflicting realities. We go to the Big E, and I get out, and somehow we make it out of the car, and we walk in, and then we're in the Big E now. But I don't remember any of that. To me, it's just like scenes of a movie. So that was one scene, and now we're in the next scene, and there was no transition. Um, it just jumped right to the next scene, which is a lot of my childhood memories is just scene based, and I don't remember. I know that people don't like me, but I can't remember why. People call me Crazy Casey, but I can't remember why. So, like, I look just as crazy. To me, I just thought everybody was different and unique and individual, and that there was really no right or wrong other than making sure that you're opening yourself up to as much potential as possible, and then just be. You should be judged based off your decisions. Is how I grew up. Wasn't taught that, but that's just what I thought. That there's no such thing as weird. But there is such things as people that are held back by things, and that's causing them to act a certain way that is obviously incongruent to who they really are. But they're not really weird. They just lack experience and they have trauma. I mostly see everybody as the same exact person, just with different bionicle pieces attached to them. Um, So we're at the Big E, and then an angel or Jesus or a spirit or me from the future or something s- spawns spiritually next to me, and I can feel it and I can see it spiritually because my third eye is open. I can see it. I know that they don't know what it is. I'm not scared. I'm not telling anybody. It's not a big deal for me. It's just there. And it goes, take it, turn around and look at the sun. So I turn around and look directly at the sun, and it said, imagine this, that as a that's not a ball in the sky, that is a hole, and on the other side of that hole is the infinite, everything, the infinity. Inside this, imagine us as in a little dark room, and that's a way for the infinite has imagined this so that the infinite can condense and experience itself. And then it was like, what would you do now that you know this? So I was like, I mean, if nothing matters, then I look over and I see that there's all these really shitty products in these stupid tents that everybody's selling for a ridiculous amount of money. And I can see that every single one of them is completely unconscious and they have no consciousness at all. They're not focused, they're not even there. I'm like the only present person around. Everyone else is gone. And they don't have this. They lack this, whatever I have. And I realize that that's always been the case, is that they're not real. The infinite gave me more than they had. So I just, or maybe maybe I was born to be psychotic, and that's why I have pictures of me holding knives when I'm a kid. Maybe I'm just a psychopath, and they're not. So I had fought so hard and gained consciousness because I fought for it. But not, I wasn't violent or anything. I was alone. I'm talking just about spiritually. I don't know. But so I just go and I start stealing as much as I can because I'm like they are not. They've already made much more than profit. I don't care. I have Sam be lookout just because I wanted to look cool. So I was like, be lookout, and I take a bunch of sunglasses. And I know Sam. I don't know how Sam feels about that. That I was a thief back in the day, but not from people, but from stores. I would take Arizonas and take sunglasses, and I thought that was very cool back in the day to pocket things like a raccoon. Um, So then we just keep walking, and then I'm like, oh, I want that. I look in, and coincidentally, now that you've known so much about me, you know that it's a simulation, and time isn't real. So God knows what's going to happen in the future. So every moment is like an Easter egg to something else. Like the Bible is layers and layers and layers. So every moment of your life is layers and layers and layers to different stories you have no idea you're a part of until they grow as time goes by. But they've always been there, and they're always gonna be there. Um, so I look in and I'm drawn to this red and black cowboy outfit. It's got like the nice cowboy shirt, but it's got the red designs right above the chest, those like horizontal S shapes. And I saw this black cowboy hat, and I wanted it. So I've just it's so easy to just wait until the guy turns his head and take it, and I know exactly the right because I was so aware of everything. I could literally just see his consciousness, his decision making, and his light body on Earth spiritually. So I didn't need to look at him to know where he was and where he was going and what he was doing. I could see that with everybody in the area. I could see the flow of everything and the how God was consciously moving all the pieces and how their free will they hadn't realized they had it and they weren't living up to that standard, so they were just kind of a vessel for the other higher forces moving everybody around or lower forces, whatever everybody had. So I could just see the pieces being moved by the other things, and I was not a part of that. So I just kind of danced around them beautifully to take all these different things, and then I like a like free movement like this, and nobody noticed. So I live streamed it. I'll talk about it in a minute. Somebody asked about my drug stories, so I took all that, and then I walked up to the group, and then Jacob was like, "Where'd you get that?" And I was like, "I stole it." And he was like, "Well, go fucking put it back." I was like, "Oh, okay," because I didn't want any drama. So I went back and I saw that I realized that the man from Massachusetts was very fat, and he was very angry, and I was full of light and happy. So I was like, regardless of what happened, I'm gonna try to have a good time. So I just went, "Hey man, I stole these." And he was like, "Well, fucking give it back, whatever." And he was like, "Get the fuck out of here." I was like, "Okay, man. Have a good day." And I walked back to the group, and then we moved on. And then I was guided to this big sign in a trailer, and it said, "Come see the magic horse." And everybody there, their last name, that family that I was with, their last name means Irish horse, and I'm a Sagittarius, and it was in the year of the horse. So no, well, yeah, it was 2014. So I go in, I pay the money. It's like $5. I'm like, I'll go see the magic horse, and I'll tell you what it's like. So I leave the group, obviously, because that's what Casey does. Is he leaves to go gather information about what things are like, and then he comes back and, I climbed up that mountain and I found out that we got it all wrong. The view is cool, but they only play sad songs. I went into the magic horse, and I went through this maze in the trailer, and then when you get to it, it's just a pony, and the pony is dug into the ground in a small box that the pony can only fit diagonally in, and it can't move, and it can't even look up at me. It's just a pony in a tiny box deep in that trailer. So I'm like, what the fuck? And I go out and they're like, what was it? And I was like, it's literally nothing special at all. And they're like, I figured. And then we keep going, and that's really all I can remember of that. But we also we call it McDonald's trips, where Alex and Joey would buy like 2 or 3 packs of Marlboro cigarettes, Marlboro Blacks, and Joey would drive us, and Alex would be in the front seat, and Sam and I would be in the back seat, and we would all just hang out, and we'd all be chain smoking cigarettes and listening to music on their iPods that were attached to the aux back before like when Ox had just come out. So I think we had like some like hot wire jury rig thing to get the aux cord plugged into the speaker, and we'd just drive down there and chain smoke and talk, and then we'd go to McDonald's in North Adams, and I'd always get an Oreo McFlurry, and that was some of the best. That year was probably one of the best years of my life. That feeling was incredible. I got drunk on New Year's, and I really liked. There were two girls that came over with me, my friend Sam and Ryan. But Sam was 6 foot tall, dark hair, bright blue eyes, six pack, huge muscles, just a really attractive guy. He could play Superman. And I was chubby, and I had a bad haircut, bowl cut, wore a fedora, even though I'm an ancient soul and he isn't. Um, but they all wanted him. They got drunk, and both girls wanted Sam. And Ryan was there explain. He was there when he got drunk. He started just channeling the universe, and he was explaining quantum physics to us. And we were like, "What a weird guy." But he was receiving messages from aliens, and he was teaching us about quantum physics. And Ryan is like 5 foot tall right now. He's like 5'2". He's really short, and he's really funny. But he was explaining to us the metaphysics of the universe and how everything works because he was being explained by our aliens how to do it, and we just back then was deep in Pisces still. We hadn't gotten anywhere towards 2020 in the age of Aquarius. We were still in Pisces, so we were like, we were still trapped in the darkness, and we were drunk. I I didn't like that the girls liked Sam, and even though when Sam expressed he didn't want the girls, they turned their attention towards me. I was like, I wasn't interested knowing I was a second option. So I was like, let's go on a walk, because Sam was my best friend. So the three, Sam, Ryan, and I all went for a walk, and I told Sam was like, "Are you okay, man?" I was like, "I'm sick of losing girls to you." And then we smoked cigarettes, walked around. I loved walking around in negative degrees with nothing on, and we were just smoking cigarettes and laughing, walking up and down this road with only 30 people that live in a 5 mile radius, going to the lake and seeing his Sam's older sister in a bikini for the first time, and hanging out with everybody. And mind you, I grew up completely alone, where it wouldn't be foreign for me to not speak a single word for months, other than like, can I get food? So to be a part of a group that seemed like they really like I was welcomed, even if they thought I was weird, I was welcomed. It was amazing. They helped me go swimming and run through the woods for the first time in my life, go on the rope swing and go into the water, even though I was really scared to. Eventually I did it. Then they would use my house for Wi-Fi because they were homeschooled and they couldn't get Wi-Fi. But they would hang out with me, and I just got progressively weirder and worse because I was losing track of. I was getting lost in thought more, and then the only influence I had was television. So I was kind of being programmed by the TV, and my life had sort of morphed more and more into living in a TV show, and I had lost touch with my potential to do things. It wasn't necessarily my brain cells dying, it was that I had no influences. I had no good influences. I was alone with a crazy, disabled, retarded, narcissistic, gaslighting, controlling mother living in delusion and a television. So eventually the family said, "We don't want Casey around anymore." But I remember, like, I think when I came back from the Big E, I was on acid, and it was the summertime then, and I was on the trampoline, and their 7-year-old brother Owen came out of the car when he got home and was like, and I couldn't process it. And Owen knew I couldn't process it because he has a brother that did acid. So he knew he was fucking. What he knew, that 7-year-old knew what he was doing, and he was just like really. They were a great family, man. I wish that I had been good enough for them. I miss them every day. It's been 13 years. It's been almost 13 years. I think about them every day. I miss them every day. But they developed and they have degrees. They're living a life, and I don't know how to speak to them anymore. I know if I messaged Alex and apologized and said, "Can we hang out?" he would say, "Yeah." But I don't know how to make friends. When I go there, I feel our energies are always battling. I don't know how relationships work. So I just wanted to get a lot of money first. And then once I had a lot of money, then we could all go on activities and I would have some personal sovereignty and freedom, because I never want to be the sad, sick kid that it's a favor to be my friend. And I don't want to be in a position where people are trying to leech off of me. And then I'm in a war with my family, with my mom, where she ruined my life. When I left home, I was cognizant, conscious, and able to do things. After the trauma of the police, because my mom lied, I lost functioning. They raped my spirit, and I haven't been able to fix it for years. Clipped. So after that, I didn't do any drugs until 2018 when I started smoking weed. And in 2018, smoking weed is just it feels great, but the high is destroying your brain cells. So every time it's like a trampoline. You bounce once and it's really high. Then you bounce again, it's a little less high. Then you bounce again and bounce again and bounce again. And the problem is that there's really no way to ever get back to that initial bounce. And what the problem is that if you didn't smoke weed, your brain would naturally give you those bounces all the time. You're meant to bounce like that. But you're meant to bounce it like that in a certain way, which is through achievement, hard work, exercise, social situations, sex. But after drugs, that's why people go to sex, money, and murder. And I guess it's worse if you do coke. If you do coke, it's like you can never, like now at least I can jump. When I bounce, I get to like this high. But I know if I did coke, everyone I know that does coke, they're stuck on that last bounce. They're never going past this bounce ever. So at least I know I smoked a lot of weed for 3 months when I was 18, and I lost that bounce. But later, through quantum physics that I learned from someone that works for the CIA, that I went to her office and begged for help, and she called the police, and then she called me and apologized and said that God sent me to her because her ego was out of control, and she gave me a book that taught me a lot. With that, occasionally smoking weed, like one hit. But what I learned with fasting and spirituality, that one hit, I was able to activate everything. And that would shift me out of reality, and I would start to see entities, and my cat could see the same entities. And that's when my world got dark, like really dark. And that was only like a 6 month period of smoking weed heavily, and then didn't really smoke until later. But the like really lasting effects came at 2019. I think my soul would thrive in a specific environment. I can see kind of mediums that are close to that environment, to like maybe that, I think that's called your soul urge, what you feel like you're meant to do. Like I would say that that few times I did acid when I was 13 completely destroyed me, but really I think that it allowed me to dissolve all of the stuff that was not me and that I didn't like, and now I can only really live a specific life because that's me and that's who I am. When I'm living that life, suddenly my features, my jaw gets back to where it doesn't, it's not sitting up here, and I have like a weird looking frame of my face. My jaw is naturally supposed to be lower, but trauma and not being able to focus and trauma and trauma and trauma and trauma has fucked me up. And by trauma, I mean like even if I were to meditate and gain a little bit more access to my cognitive ability and my spiritual sense, I'm it's anxiety, it's anxious, and it's hard to focus, and it's scary. It's very scary, and I've been doing it alone, so who knows how many times I scared myself so bad I compartmentalized it. Like my traumas, I have tons of moments in my life that were so traumatic that my brain won't let me remember it. So a lot of what would keep me normal, because if I were to experience that trauma, I would remember what I was like before it, which would be normal. But because I'm hiding from things I can't remember anymore, I'm always kind of stuck outside of that. That's what I would say. I wouldn't say permanent damage from drugs. I would say trauma was so terrifying that I've compartmentalized myself into not being able to remember what being normal was like. I don't think that it degraded, degraded, degradation, it degraded my brain. Degradation. I don't think it degraded my brain. um, I don't read, and I live out in the woods where you lose your sense of self, and your consciousness sort of becomes a shared resource with the entire mycelial network and the birds and everything. So you kind like I'll find myself feeling the pull, like I'll wake up from a good dream and then I'm full of this beautiful bright energy, and the birds come over and they feel safe around me. But then when energy gets scarce, the birds will start to chirp it and pull it away from me and sort of harvest it for themselves, and I can feel that. And in a way, I like knowing when I go into the forest and all the birds chirp, because now we're all connected. We're like a soul family now. Even if they ate me, uh, we're all harmonizing the same way because I raised these birds. I raised them. I imprinted my energetic signature has imprinted on them. But then the crows are predatory with it. They're harvesters. And there are things like I can't get to a certain state of cognizance and consciousness because that starts to complete, like, in nature, your energetic body and your mindset and your spiritual stuff is nature's always changing. So when I start to like assert my own reality, nature gets upset because that's pulling the everything in. Nature allowed me to be a part of it. If I start to pull everything, it's going to shift everything and I'm going to take all the power for myself. So of course you're going to have a bear outside suddenly or a deer outside suddenly and they're stomping and yelling. Because it's not polite, yo. If I smoked weed right now, I would gain sentience and I would start to realize relationships and sexual dynamics, and I don't like it. I'm a Scorpio in the 8th house. No, I'm a Sagittarius in the 8th house, which is very attractive, and it makes people obsess about me. And for me, it was pedophilia. I needed help, I was traumatized, and the people that offered to help me wanted to fuck me. So I got trapped as a super empath around pedophiles. That for months, at the lowest point of my functioning in existence, I was fighting off rapists all day. Like literally all the time when I was 19 through 21. Everybody, including my mom. So, that's my drug story. I'm gonna tag the person that asked. Thanks for watching.